hear me okay? Good, yeah. Okay. Thank you so much, Teresa. You are hysterical. And what I have to laugh about is because at one point in time, I cut my hair in bangs, and I got teased nonstop about being the Serena, whatever her name was, Xena. Yeah, brought back good memories. I'm never doing that again. Anyway, thank you. Love you lots. Thank you so much for asking me to participate in your meeting. Um, you have no idea the tailspin you put me in when you invited me, and then you said I had to pick out one little thing from step 11, either from the big book or from the 12 and 12. And that for me is like an impossible task. And as you know, we went back and forth a lot of times. I would have had a whole paragraph or something written out there, but I settled on what is on the flyer. But I want to start. First of all, I guess I should say I'm Judith and I'm an alcoholic, and my sobriety date is January the 19th, 2009. I am very, very grateful to be able to participate in your meeting tonight and to participate in my own sobriety. So yeah, back to step 11. I get too enthusiastic and want to jump into all that right away. Where that little phrase comes from that Teresa just read comes from page 98 in the 12 and 12. And I want to read, if you don't mind, the whole paragraph. And it says, there is a direct linkage among self-examination, meditation, and prayer. Taken separately, these practices can bring much relief and benefit. But when they are logically related and interwoven, the result is an unshakable foundation for life. Now and then, we may be granted a glimpse of that ultimate reality, which is God's kingdom, and we will be comforted and assured that our own destiny in that realm will be secure for so long as we try, however faltering, to find and do the will of our own Creator. And I love step 11, and that paragraph really kind of sums it up, sums a lot up for me and holds a lot of truth for me. And I want to also read something that is not conference approved. Okay, I just read what my goal is, what I strive for. Now I want to read you a tiny little thing that describes my natural default position. And it comes from Kierkegaard. And it says, it is the normal state of the human heart to try to build its identity around something besides God. Spiritual pride is the illusion that we are competent to run our own lives, achieve our own sense of self-worth, and find a purpose big enough to give us meaning in life without God. You try to put anything in the middle of the place that was originally made for God, it is going to be too small. It is going to rattle around in there. That is me in a nutshell, and that is my life. And that is why I'm so grateful for step 11, because it gives me a very specific design for living that makes it possible for me to fill that empty void within me. It makes it possible for me to stop trying to build my self-worth and my identity around nothing other than me. And it plugs me in such a way that has brought not just relief, but true recovery on a daily basis, if I do it. So part of my daily program is a strong practice of step 11. And step 11, I have been taught, sits on these 3 pillars that's in the quote on the flyer that was read by Teresa. And those three pillars are prayer, meditation, and self-examination. And it helps me remember what I have to do. It reminds me who I be on a daily basis by using all three, not just one. And like I read in the 12 and 12, taking those three things taken separately does bring relief and it has great benefits. But together, interwoven, it's like that's where I get rocketed into the fourth dimension. So prayer, I think definitions are important, and I keep these definitions in my book. But for me, prayer involves having a relationship to what that power is that I'm praying to. It involves emotion and energy. My meditation, a lot of times I hear, I was just this way as well. There's a lot of misconception and fear around meditation, but simply put, for me, the goal is to have an intense, focused concentration on the now. And I do that by many different ways. I practice many forms of meditation, and I don't have time to go into them right now, but I want to have focused and intense concentration right here, right now. My sponsor always comes up to me and goes right in front of my face, and the point is Judith, get in between those claps, right there. And that's my goal. That's intense, focused presence in the now, right here, right now. It also, I find, creates a sacred space that I need, that pause, in which I can sense my higher power. See, my ego is always fighting to control my mind. And the main tool that my ego uses is fear. There's a lot going on. And if I get stuck in my head, I cannot get in that pause. I cannot create that sacred space, that sacred stillness that I need in meditation. Inventory that we do in step 11, for me, raises the level of my consciousness. It allows me to become more aware, and I get to wake up spiritually. It helps me become a person that is spiritually led rather than emotionally driven, as I have always been in my life, driven by my feelings. And the big book talks about driven by 100 forms of fear and selfishness and all the resentment, all these emotions, all these feelings. And I'm driven emotionally by these things. And step 11, the inventory, allows me to be spiritually led rather than emotionally driven. So all three of those, interwoven, as the 12 and 12 said, allows me to have this amazing experience on a daily basis. But especially inventory. Now I want to focus a little bit on inventory, because inventory is what grows humility within me, which I believe, according to what is written in our literature, is the greatest spiritual safeguard that I can have. It must be, for me, the central topic, the central theme, subject, the central foundational principle of my personal life. Because without some degree of humility, I will not stay sober. as Bill W. says. None of us will without some degree of humility. And I certainly won't be of any use at all because I'm consumed with self. So I found that this inventory allows me to develop more of this precious quality of humility. And if I don't do it, I don't have much chance of living a truly happy or peaceful or meaningful life. And I will always be driven by self-will and selfishness, self-centeredness, and self-reliance. I have found that self always fails. And when it fails, the end result for me is always self-loathing, or I try to overcompensate with pride. And both are equally destructive to me. So my pride and my ego has always prevented me from seeing and accepting the reality of my condition, which is caused by me. How I always arrive in my current condition if I'm miserable. And step 11 shows me what steps I've got to take to change that current condition. So step 11, the prayer, the meditation, and the self-examination or inventory that was referred to, linked together by, in the 12 and 12, allows me to practice and genuinely walk, or I like to say live in humility. And I do that perfectly imperfect. And on any given day, it looks, some days it looks okay and other days it doesn't. But the prayer and like I said, the prayer meditation, they both allow me to be still, especially meditation. And it's important. And step 11 says prayer and meditation. And so often I hear it shared in meetings that I don't do meditation. I'm not good at meditation. I don't know how to do meditation. And so they quit and they give up. I was like that at the beginning. I started meditating, 3 minutes a day. But if we ignore it and we ignore the and in step 11, we miss out on so much. Yes, we may get relief from prayer, but we're not interweaving all three of these things that our foundation is built on. But meditation, especially, as I mentioned, allows me to be still. I get to slow down. I get to pause. I get to open up that sacred space. I get quiet in that sacred stillness. And I get to listen and to get more awareness at what's underneath. It comes to me after I do my inventory as well, what I rationalize, what I defend. My ego is so good at that. Excusing, justifying, defending, rationalizing. And I find it takes a lot of courage for me to do that, because I run from responsibility. I run from the pain of seeing the truth about how I'm showing up in life. I run from admitting that I've made a mistake, that I am wrong. One of the hardest things for me to admit that I am wrong. I've made a mistake. And I run from that. I run from any pain. I run from suffering. But I find, in that it also allows me in this quiet, sacred space, in the stillness, I find a measure of grace and compassion as well. And so I've come to treasure it and long for it. If I miss it, I feel that something's missing in my day. I get this divine dissatisfaction. I want more and more. There's never enough. It's not easy for me to practice this on a daily basis, the prayer, the meditation, and the inventory, because I am an undisciplined, irresponsible, immature, and childish individual. But I've learned that I appreciate the results. And the results have been so good that it compels me further to seek more, that divine dissatisfaction. I want more. It's like in the big book talking about mining, that miner that strikes gold. And, the more he mines, the more he gets. So step 11 allows me to do the hard work. I consider it hard because it addresses things I don't want to see or acknowledge or change. But it allows me to raise my consciousness, consciously make contact with this power. And by doing all three, I notice what is going on in my life. I think all three, as they talk about in the 12 and 12, where I just read, they're interwoven. Because without the quietness and the stillness of meditation, without the practice of humility in prayer, acknowledging what my role is in life and what my higher power's role is in life, I can't even get willing to do the inventory. So all three are so vital for me on a daily basis. I need to know what's going on. I need to change what I read from Kierkegaard, my default position of trying to establish my own identity around anything other than my higher power, around anything other than these spiritual principles. I honestly find that prayer and meditation are easier than inventory, like I said, because I cling to my way. Me, mine, and more is what matters to, me in my default position. So the inventory brings that to the surface. And it's got to be brought to the surface so that I become aware of it. I can see it for what it is. It becomes objectionable to me. And then I can be willing to let my higher power transform it, remove it or transform it. But the catch 22 for me is I want the relief, just the prayer or just the fun meditation. I want relief. And I want relief from the consequences of my actions, the pain and the bondage of self and the big mess I make of my life. And I so often miss out on the cure, the real cure of recovery. So the step 11 inventory allows me to get honest and admit that there's a significant part of me that still doesn't want to change. I still want what I want, my way. And it reveals to me when I'm in this catch-22, but it only reveals it to me if I want to see it. The one thing that I've found is that there are times that I do the inventory. And I can check the boxes. I can say I did it. I've done my step 11, and it's more of a box checking. And I found that doing my step 11 like that is nothing more than another way that I am delusional or dishonest with myself. What I mean by that is that doing my step 11 inventory in such a way as to just say done or check the boxes, not really being aware, not really being present with the prayer and meditation, is a fantasy if I don't also consider the corrective actions that I've got to take. And then if I do consider the corrective actions I've got to take, but don't take them, it's just simply a fantasy. Step 11 inventory, I have been taught, is constructive rather than the deconstructive inventory of step 4. Right? That tears me, I get it out, get that inventory out, get rid of it, and scrape all that junk and poison out. And it's a discarding, destructive process. And step 11 inventory is constructive. And it requires me to take what I find in the inventory questions and make it a matter of spiritual business, not just a checklist. It's not always easy for me, because my sponsor's favorite one and my least favorite one of the inventory questions in step 11 is, was I kind and loving toward all? And it's not always easy for me to look at. And once looked at, and it warns us in step 11 not to sink into morbid self-reflection. And it's easy for me to do, because was I kind and loving to all? No, it's not a day that I'm kind and loving to all. And so I can either beat myself up, sink into morbid self-reflection, or avoid the question, avoid doing it, or just no, I was not, and move on. But the whole inventory, if I don't do it in a constructive way and actively, for me, think of ways that I can tomorrow, what baby steps, what action steps that can I take in this situation if this happens again or something similar, what corrective measures can I take tomorrow in order to grow into a more kind and loving person? So over the years, I've done it both ways. I've done it at a checklist so that I can tell my sponsor I'm doing it. I've done it so when I start experiencing problems and I'm like, oh, I better get back to it, or I better do it. I can do it as a checklist. But really, when we are reading in the paragraph in the 12 and 12, when it talks about if we do them, all three of them, and have them related and interwoven, the result is an unshakable foundation for life. That's what I'm looking for, an unshakable foundation when things are really good, because that sometimes is more dangerous for me, but also when life happens. A good friend of mine uses the phrase, what's coming to your neighbor's door is coming to your door. That's life. Whether it's loss of job, whether it's illness, whether it's divorce, whether it's loss of a loved one. Life is life, and what's coming to my neighbor's door is going to come to my door, and I need an unshakable foundation to handle these things. In the quote that I read from Kierkegaard, it's so funny that on a daily basis, my spiritual pride does convince me often that I can run my own life. And it tells me that if I have good intentions, I meant to, I didn't mean to. Or if I say that I have this strong desire to change, that is enough in life. I'm trying, is what I always used to say to my sponsor, when really that only meant that I say I want to do something or that I have intentions. But if you'd look at my actions, you could see that there ain't very much trying going on, because it's not backed up by any action. And if I don't take action on the inventory, if I don't take action on what is being raised in my consciousness, it's not going to have the desired results. I pretend that simply giving these issues a nod in my inventory is all that's required. Did it? Are you doing your step 11? Yep, doing my step 11. But that's not all that's required of me if I want the promises that are listed in the 12 and 12. I have to make it a part of serious spiritual business. And that means taking action on what I find in my inventory. Not just saying, oh, there it is again. There it is again. There it is again. But again, constructively looking at it and asking myself and spending time in meditation about what action steps can I take to practice the opposite of what I am finding, not focusing on what I'm finding, but practicing the opposite. And also to take it to prayer, interweaving all three, finding it in my inventory, sitting in contemplation and meditation, and corrective measures come to me, humbling myself in prayer, asking for the strength to do God's will and to carry it out. All interwoven. It takes energy and effort on my part, but the results are amazing. This step 11 has such strong spiritual content and with tons of common sense. It's practical, super easy instructions to follow. I mean, as the same, I have a friend also, the same one, actually, I guess I'm quoting Kent tonight, but good friend of Teresa's, but he says, just read the black words on the white page in the blue book. And step 11 is so simple. They give us step-by-step instructions. Very easy to follow, but so often very neglected by myself and some of my sponsees. And in my opinion, more than any other time in history, maybe in my history, not in the history of the world, but my limited history, I desperately need the practice of inventory, prayer, and meditation, all three interwoven. It is vital for me to create that sacred space and listen in that sacred silence. Because in my life today, I'm inundated with noise and fear and worldly clamors on a daily basis. It's easy for me when I listen to that noise, when I don't do the meditation, when I don't do the prayer, when I don't do the inventory, I become very afraid, angry, anxious, depressed, stressed out. Once again, I start hustling for worthiness because I have nothing else. And I'm back to that Kierkegaard quote about trying to create some sense of worth and some sense of how do I find meaning and value in this life. My life becomes an expression of self-centered motives rather than inner freedom. There's a few people on here that live near me, very closely to me. They see me on a daily basis and they get to see how I show up on a daily basis. The dudes at the 801 house, a few others, they've seen me. Hopefully sometimes at my best and often at my worst. When I start buying into that fear and noise. Step 11, the prayer, the meditation, the inventory, slowly unmasks the illusion of myself. And I get to discover the truth about myself. If I want to see it. The step 11 prayer reminds me all through the day, the multiple prayers that are given to me, what my role is and what my higher power's role is. And my step 11 meditation allows me to listen to the voice of the divine, like I like to say all the time, who spoke to me before I could speak a word, who healed me before I could make any gesture to help anyone else, who set me free long before I could help free others, and who loved me long before I could give love to anyone. It's kind of hard to wrap up exactly what step 11, prayer, meditation, and self-examination mean to me and do for me. And I could talk to, and I do talk to my sponsees for hours about these things. There's so much richness, and I find that the longer that I practice, it seems as though the richer it gets, yes, but I get to experience how little I know, how dependent I am And I get to experience the immense gratitude for this design for living that's been given to me by all of you. And I want to thank you for giving it to me.